تعالي سراويتكا كم يدولوا اليوم نيرم أتا موزحتهم حريم نيرم كلهم جفتي بخونتو دبيلهم حاجة مسقول بسكوتي أصوارهم ما مسيم صلاتي وأنا أوارد النباويان يلا جو عيدن بتقرأي كحرسي لقواريسة تقصي ويانا جن أتي من المرسي عبيد كاري خاطع أيزخونه ويانا أيول كاين حريت هتن ولك جوايدا حسن بقران سافن تقديدا برهان جلا عزا سلطان تقبلنا أبي عركينات كايكونكم عزا تريد عزا اللي عزا وازا كذا نعيل باجع دبلي أبي عركي دقم ساخ عرخن حفرتي بويان حمشاي كزي مالك مصوع وندن دمك سراويت نودي ومسن الناس حق بول صوع ونقودو أي بسمكم دام حراي تواردو واي أنا تواردكم بويان أسويتاي نغزارب زمباوي دحشن سعود عرب تنسى أتكلم كل اللي بحسن حكون تبع علم تحطته صدقكم زيادة حنكم حقيقي يلا ما مارسي أو زيادة حني أغمض زي دمس ويانا واردكم ويانا عدي وريركم ما خطونا لكم عنا أبوتات حريركم كتأزغتمنا عوادنا دفيركم مسيلكم زمودنا جزاوتك أتسيلكم كتريو تسقمنا قناوي كفتت علما نسمرنا حزب تግራይ كحرس إلى زحسو بمن تجدده مجمريا دا خينات زي ما أجده تشاويت مشلاي حوز ندده تسعدا سنيت إذا حفظكوا بوررتي إذا توسدي أنت سعدا حسوت أنت زحساوي
سلام كورات ناي سايبر باور تግራይ ميديا تخاطر العالم مرز زلخم لما أنتي كم كل جزء تفضلوا عونا بركة كيروس بزي ميديا نقرأ كل جزء مجمرتا بإنجليزية نحناتو كاوتن هلا نا إنجليزية برنامجنا مستعرشنا تمرلسنا أتينا نا بإنجليزية خنقصدينا نابتقرينا يكرتا ياو إتهم حق دفاويان تستخوينم أبدي سابا حزبنا أبزي إيوانزيو دفع السرح وزلو أبي أحمد موتين ماتون شاني قوة عرك نابل حيزي ناي نيجيريا بريزيدنت زنفرون ناب مقالة خمدر هم سيد ولا مكنه يلمني زلوا إن كالي وري نايز حلفة سومن نايز حلفة كاب حامس سكاب سنفت أو واشنطن دي سي ذكرنا نقط أمي بعلي مس أتبركت حونا خالتون بزحت تجارو تأكيدنا انتهي نجارنا أنينا أنا أو حسر بيننا نسونجلسنا كالي ونا لنا يوتي ناي إثيوبيا أديس أبابا درافي قريبو كم زرع همو تأيي خدرف مريت صيبو ناولي تزارو نسوون حسرنا بالله فيديوهات كم يقول لما أنتي بسي إن زوجي بتناي نايتا إثيوبيا هاجر تبهال نورت بوتا سبوكسبر وومن تبهيلا بسي إن زوجت جيتا شورا داون زوجو زيوني أفتنا إنجليزيا برنامجنا كنا أقولكم هنا دحراي نقولكم حساب نهاتنا نايب علنا ريتو personal ريتو سلاز خانة أفتي حد discussion ون ياو strong discussion كله ون ناخذيو سلازيو بتحتنا بخبرن ياو نعدمكم كم ون أتبركت حونا welcome كم قاعد هن مزحة.
Thank you, Mike. Nice to see you again from our journey from DC to go back home to our respected families.
Thank you. So for those of you who have been following the media, clearly the Tigray Liberation Fighter, or TDF, and the Oromo Liberation Army, or Oromo Liberation Fighter, merged last week. Additionally, we have 9 different regional representatives within the federal system, the former state of Ethiopia, coming together in Washington, DC, to form an ally and unity in regards to the current situation in Ethiopia, and the rejection of Abiy Ahmed could no longer be the leader in Ethiopia. It's clear Abiy Ahmed himself spoke today saying that they, meaning him and his puppets, have been defeated financially, politically, in every avenue. That is his own word. He begged today for everybody, for those who can help financially, physically, in whatever way possible, because he said Ethiopia has been lost by our media, the Tagara media and the diaspora. Believe it or not, the Tagara movement and the diaspora, believe it or not, has been not just powerful, but it has actually brought Abiy Ahmed and his terrorist organization to their knees. He further been repeatedly falsifying, saying there was 100 massacre in Kambolcha, which is false and lies. And he's been telling some Ethiopians that there were white and black non-Tigrayans fighting in Kambolcha and Desse. That is why they lost. He actually admit they lost in Kambolcha and Desse, but he said because foreigners were fighting. He repeat that lie over and over again. So, I mean, we have a ton of other topics that we're going to be discussing, but I know you're laughing. Why is it funny?
Well, I mean, let me, before I start answering your question, let me reflect our presence in DC for a couple of minutes.
Sure.
First, I'd like to start for those brave Tigray Defense Forces. May those who gave up their today so that Tagaru will breathe free, live in all of the memories, respect, and honor to them. Of course, 365 days. That's the darkest day in Tagaru's history, and we'll remember for generations to come. We may forgive, but we'll never forget the day, and we'll take every conceivable measures to assure that never happens again. Like the Jewish society all over the world rallied behind the outrage and cry never again, so will Tagaru. We may not be able to buy media outlets and USA universities, but will reverberate the rally against Tagaru, the silence of the administration and African leaders. And I would say the Tigray Defense Forces victory against this fascist in Ethiopia and Eritrea amplifies our stature. We stand 10 feet tall with our heads up. Isaiah's game over, political cleansing will not be sung by our musicians and singers. Abiy Ahmed Ali and Isaiah Afwerki have no place to hide. No amount of Arab dollars will buy their freedom from Hague. Despots move against the will of their people, and sometimes they get away from it. Not, however, from Tigray. So it has paid dearly. We have paid dearly 130 years, the same game. But I am very hopeful. The new generation is here to stay, no more. So I think our 3 days, starting from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, was something that many of us expected. I could have seen more from Virginia, Maryland, DC, but I know the circumstance of all year long fatigue, we didn't expect. I didn't expect to see that amount of less people than what I anticipated. Nevertheless, it was successful. Our message reached to those who have concern, to the State Department, that you were one of those people who presented the issue, what's going on in Ethiopia and in some of the occupied areas in Western Tigray, especially in Addis Ababa, racial profile against the Tagaru, who have no claim in all those parties, but because of their identity, who they are. I just have received a couple of days upon my arrival, some of the former army officials who've been stayed in their respected homes. Now they are recalled, and the family, they don't know where they're about, or where they are about. And also some innocent people who are picked up from the street and so on, and from their workplaces as well.
So we're going to talk about that in a minute. I'm going to go to that. Let's stay with the DC. So 4 days of protest, you were part of it. Let me say this. Thank you to those who participated in that movement. I was blessed to be part of the younger generation movement, actually, to organize it. I believe there was about 46 to 47 of us that we've been working together relentlessly for the past, I would say, a month and a half to 2 months. They're an amazing young men and women. And of course, the older generation who trusted in us and had faith in us, to see them come. Well, they didn't complain being cold, being, hungry and thirsty throughout like 4-day process. And so, and I saw like people that I have not seen in a while also, which was refreshing. The State Department brought a representative that I had the opportunity to speak to. And I think sometimes we tend to get carried away who carries the voice for our people, for Tigray. And I was a little bit disappointed, not to complain on media, but, we had, I think there was 2 young women and 2 young men spoke to the U.S. state representative who came out. The young lady and I, when it was an opportunity for the 2 of us to address the issues in Tigray and why the United States government all of a sudden is telling TDF to not move forward. Initially they were saying not to enter to Kombolcha and Desse or Kombolcha, however we want to say it. The folks, the young men and young women who spoke before me and the other young lady, actually, they did a very good job. They were talking about the mass arrest in Addis Ababa and other issues. Where I felt that we need to address is why the U.S. government is all of a sudden telling TDF they cannot move forward, and that was not addressed. And when it was an opportunity to do so, I felt compelled as an American and also as part of the media and part of this movement from day one with my brothers and sisters all over the country and all over the world, And most importantly, you and I have worked, in organizing the community and the meetings that we conduct on the weekends, on Fridays, and part of the SJT, which is the Security and Justice for Tigrayans. So, this may sound like a little bragging, but the fact is that, we've been involved in every movement, organizing, contacting government officials within the United States. I was a little bit upset because I was told, like, no, you cannot talk to him by one of my colleagues who happens to be another activist. And I literally turned over and looked and I say, no, as an American, I have every right to speak to my elected official who came to speak to me. And I'm just like, so anyway, so it was not as smooth. So the representative actually, he heard me. He said, go ahead and please speak to me. He looked at me, he said, go ahead, please. So I guess, the reason I'm bringing this up is, look, sometimes we tend to make mistakes within ourselves that it almost seems that we're trying to put a competition within ourselves whose voice is better than the other. And, I think it's wrong for us to feel that one or two specific person are better than the rest of us or the rest of our communities in the diaspora, because everybody has worked so hard. We cannot allow this opportunity to just pass. And that was my whole thing, was that I just, I was able to basically, to sum it up, what I was able to convey to him is that, look, I told him, I say, as an American, I'm blessed to be an American. But at the same time, I'm a Tigrayan American. My family in Tigray and millions of other families in Tigray have been in the dark for exactly 365 days. So he asked me, he said, why are you here today? I said, we are here today to plead to you, to my government as an American, to say, take action. You can stop this war like at any moment, just like you did in Yugoslavia. It is no different. In fact, it's worse in Tigray when you have 365 days of no electricity, no running water. We cannot get hold of our family. We don't know who's alive or dead. We have mass arrests in Addis Ababa. So I ask him, I say, can you tell me, if America and Europe fails to protect civilians in Tigray, who should be saving them? The only option we have is to support TDF and for TDF to proceed and to oust the dictator in Addis Ababa and in Asmara in order for us to survive, because the West has failed us. My government, my American government in this country has failed me. So anyway, although he wanted to leave, actually he was more engaging. And this other young lady spoke after me. She was far better than any of us, actually, to be honest with you. The way she spoke passionately as an American, Tigrawayti, but as an American. I was so proud of her. I had an opportunity to talk to her the next day. And so anyway, so it was an opportunity that I felt like we worked together, but there was also a moment that we almost lost that opportunity. So I just wanted, for our viewers, for everyone that was there, we want to support one another. We want to stand together because it was beautiful. It was really, the police were very positive. They were very supportive. We're supposed to block one lane on Saturday when we did the caravan, and we blocked both roads several times. I was jogging, holding my Tigray flag. The cops were just like, hey, good job, but be careful on, traffic, don't get hit. And, so it was, overall, it was very successful. I appreciate each and every one of our Tagar that came. Anyway, I want to give you an opportunity to say something.
Thanks, Mike, for bringing such issues that has to be addressed. And I'm going to answer this from my own perspective and experience of 20-something years plus advocacy work. And on the second level, the USA administration political correctness statement that we should address as well. One of the things that, some, I will say some or few people try to use this unfortunate circumstance to advance their own ego. And that has to be told. We are here, to do one thing that really define all of us to work, because genocide is being committed in Tigray. And we should, the voice for our people. That is the issue that all of us has to be concerned. But what I see, there are certain or very few individuals, if I have to cherry pick, they try to use this unfortunate circumstance to promote themselves. If we cannot work together and respect each other here to do the advocacy, what else? So I think this forum, we're not going to name names, but also such kind of blatant behavior should not be tolerated. They have to be taught. When fellow Tigray wants us to present his ideas, let him present. And I heard you spoke passionately. I was in a little bit distance. I heard it, what happened later. But both of you, the lady from the New York and you, presented passionately some of the issues that has never been addressed in a way in that time. So, I mean, in front of officials to dehumanize in a way fellow Tigrayans is not acceptable. It is very rude, and it's also must be addressed. I think we need to address it, all of us. It's not about one person or the other person. It should be, as Tigrayans, all of us, especially on this advocacy group, we have to respect each other. We have to support each other, especially when it comes in front of, elected officials. Any of us who are U.S. citizens, we have the right to address, whether it is a senator or State Department official, whatnot. And we have to talk it openly. And I'm so glad, Mike, you brought it in this forum, that it should not be repeated, that kind of behavior and sometime in the future, because our advocacy is going to continue as much as our people in Tigray need us, because our needs are too much. So I think some of those individuals, they should refrain their aggressive behavior. Otherwise, we're not going to tolerate that. It should be condemned. And I'm really very appalled by that. On the second level, about the U.S., especially State Department, it is really with a great alarm that we didn't really expect. I didn't really expect the politically correct statement from Biden administration, to be frank with you, because as you know, the State Department was talking about ethnic cleansing and genocide for quite some time. But especially when it comes from State Department, we know of all the statements from the Biden administration, but you have first-hand experience what genocide really, because they saw and they were talking about it. And also the misleading statement of sometimes, they say TDF, TPLF, it doesn't matter. But the conviction and commitment of the Tigray Defense Forces really stems from the genocide and brutality that dehumanize its people. The fighters include the primary users, professors, doctors, and some of them are really Harvard graduates, too, well educated, that they forced to fight for their own survival and for their own conviction. This is a determined force that they have to know. This is a determined force because of the genocide, and that will not stay short of victory. whether it is going to be in Addis or somewhere else, as far as those fascist elements are present. So the State Department must be understood in terms of this. Because
and I think he did. What I have to say honestly, I appreciate you putting it that way, Ato Barakat. He actually, responded to my question. When I asked him, when my government as an American, I told again, when I told him as an American myself, as a Tigrayan American, I love this country. Don't get me wrong. I've been protesting for 1 year, 365 days. And coming here today is very clear. The message is my people are dying. Children in Tigray are dying. The genocide in Tigray, America is not willing to call it genocide because it costs money to rebuild Tigray. And under the international rules and regulations, the moment US or any country calls it genocide, then they become obligated to rebuild Tigray. So I told him, I said, how is it when Europe, just like Yugoslavia, was quick to jump in and stop the genocide, but in Tigray, it's not happening. Yet my government in this country is saying TDF should not be advancing. What is the solution? What's holding you back? What's my government, this government here in America that I pay my taxes, what's holding it back? He say politics is not an overnight thing, but this is not part of genocide is not politics. So when we are able to articulate, and with all due respect, by the way, the person who tried to block me from speaking to him is actually a person who's been in this country for less than 7 years, is not actually an American citizen. That really was not okay. But when I told him that as an American, you are elected and you have an obligation to give me an opportunity to speak to you as a taxpayer, he actually was going to go, and he turned around. Not only did he, allow me to speak to him, but he answered some questions, and he let the other young lady from New York to speak as well. And the very person who actually tried to stop me from speaking to him, I did not hear it, but other fellow Tigrayans overheard it, saying, people like me and the other young women should not be talking to high-level government officials in America. It should only be people like them who should be speaking to them. And I am just
people.
I'm just like, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So anyway,
I will say this: we believe that the interest of the United States is the best served by closing ranks behind the TDF to conclude the war without delay. Quite honestly, they have stabilized all the towns, including the most recent occupation in Dese and Cambodia. I mean, I saw how people are doing their normal life, and they are happy, and there is nothing going on despite all the propaganda that has been waged against the TDF. So the people are welcoming the victorious TDF fighters. We celebrate Alilta and all kind of you have seen, but there is no question in anyone's mind, and that Abiy Ahmed is going to be one way, the other, he's going to be out from the office for good. And also, I will say this: we therefore implore to please and lead the way. State is invisible. The forces of TDF, OLA headed to Addis Ababa will restore peace, stability, and transitional government and proceed to a nation building. And I don't know where it's coming, all those rumors of something civil war. I don't know.
War?
This is
war.
Yeah, I mean,
it's been going on for 12
all
months.
the occupied areas, as I said earlier, order, stability, and people are leading their own lives. They have their own police forces and militia to restore peace and tranquility in those areas. But the idea is that because the OLA, TDF, the Ago, Command, and other nationalities advancing towards Addis, which is imminent, will serve the best interests of the United States. That's what we should press, and they know, and I don't know why they are using it political expedient in this manner. So one way or the other, I think those forces are going to march, and they're going to remove this fascist regime. And you heard him the last minute. He is trying to, I will do everything, I will open the state, but the Tigray forces have to get out of Afar and Amhara areas. He's the one who.
I think the U.S. after this 4-day protest that we held, or 3-day protest and 1 day of farewell, I think the U.S. understood our position. This is no longer TDF, TPLF, rebel fighters and whatnot. This is a survival fight, and we, the Tigrayan Americans, made it very clear. And I will say this. Once again, America is a place when you speak passionately, when you bring the truth to the table, your voice is important. And that is precisely what happened. The highest State Department official to come out and to speak to us. I mean, honestly, as Tagaru, I feel like very blessed to be born from Tigray, to be part of the Tigray blood, because when we do speak, despite the hiccups and the issues that I just described, we maintain our coolness, level-headed, and we spoke passionately to the representative, and he clearly understood that this is clearly, yes, and I told him, and my brothers and sisters, Tagaru, told him the same thing. Look, we understand war is not the solution to the crisis, but Tigrayans, I told him, have two options. One is to just be killed and wiped out, because ethnically Tigrayans need to be eliminated according to Abiy Ahmed, or to stand up and fight and defend Tigray, because America and the rest of the world has failed to stand against genocide, to say we cannot allow it to happen, despite former President Clinton saying after the Rwanda genocide, he said this will never happen again in our watch. And guess what? It is happening again. When he say that, I was in Fresno, California in high school. When the Rwanda genocide took place, America stood by and watched it. When the Canadian general that was on the ground in Rwanda say he only needed 3,000 troops to stop the genocide in Rwanda, he was actually let go, and by the UN, he was told leave, and he was kicked out of his mission from Rwanda and sent back to Canada. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Google that, and you will see he spoke passionately on 60 Minutes back then. So I'm not a politician, but I follow word politic throughout my high school career, throughout my college career, and post-college. And I think the notion somehow that we Tigrayans are not making a difference is wrong. I want you to listen to what Getachew Reda said today on CNN.
He finds himself in a situation where he has to struggle for his life. Now that he realizes he's not in a position to turn the tide against our forces, he is trying to mobilize people, not just against TPLF or against our forces, but more importantly, against very people who are residing in other parts of Ethiopia, especially Tigrayans and Oromos.
Let's talk about what's happening on the ground. Hold on for 1 sec. There have been reports of atrocities on both sides. Let's be quite clear about that, from the UN and the Ethiopian state-run Human Rights Council. Over the past couple of days, we've seen rebel forces allied to the TPLF advancing on the capital, Addis Ababa. This has led the Ethiopian military to issue a call to veterans to rejoin the army and protect their capital. I want to get from you, where are these fighters right now? And what are the plans to move on the capital? You certainly said it's not an ultimate objective, saying we have to break the siege on Tigray, and we will do what it takes to break the siege. We will have to do everything in our power that Abiy has unleashed on Tigray. What do you mean by that? And where are these forces?
It's quite simple. I mean, our forces are now in the northern part of Cho, which is very close to the capital Addis Ababa. Like we have been telling the world again and again, we're not particularly interested in the corridors of power in Addis. We're not particularly interested in territory. We are mostly interested in breaking the siege, which has been imposed by Abiy Ahmed. Once he realized he has failed in his military ambitions to retake Tigray, what he instituted is a reign of terror, especially by cutting off electricity, cutting of communication.
So to save time in this discussion, we understand TDF and the Oromo Liberation Army have joined together, as I was saying earlier. In fact, they are reported to be within 25 miles from Addis Ababa, or 40 kilometers, which is the equivalent of 25 miles. It is not if, whether or not TDF and the Oromo Liberation Front will be entered into Addis Ababa, but it's a matter of days for that matter. Over the weekend, the African Union sent a delegate, the former Nigerian president, to Mekelle. But from what I remember clearly, Abiy Ahmed insisted that he does not want to negotiate. He does not want to sit down and have a conversation with TPLF government or the Tigray regional government, because he called us terrorists, and he would not allow anyone to fly to Tigray up until this weekend. What changed? Oh, you're muted.
Thanks. Let me start the issue of the special envoy Obasanjo, ex or former Nigerian president. His trip to Mekelle, especially to meet our president, Dr. Debretsion, was not president. It is one of the desperate attempts of, the dying regime. He had all the chances to make a peace, but he shrugged. He didn't want it. Now, he doesn't have an army. He doesn't have that many supporters. And also, as you know, he has to ask his master. He's a puppet, as it stands right now, who is, all the security forces are Shabia or from Eritrea, who is running it. So this man is, a lion without a teeth. He's just bragging as if he has hold on Ethiopia. He doesn't have. You know it, I know it, but he pretends to be. So this is really, all this chatter is a drama behind, but the real force behind it is Isaias Afwerki and his mercenaries in Addis or in other parts of Ethiopia. So Abiy Ahmed is out of the game. So he simply is to try to show that he has hold, but he doesn't really have hold on Ethiopia. And his military is beaten badly. So he's so desperate. He's just trying to find way out of this crisis. I heard him saying, okay, I will open the siege if the Tigray Defense Forces are out of Amhara and Afar regions. Or if they are disarmed their weapons. Such a silly demand. So I don't really expect any response, with respect of his.
But don't you think he's trying to buy time for him to survive, to build more troops?
Absolutely, he's trying to buy time try to get all the purchase equipment. I don't know how he's operate. And I heard there are some mercenaries actually. Since he brought this issue, black and white people, he's the one who had those mercenaries.
That's right.
From
So
Russia.
here's one of the Eritrean security services in Addis Ababa recently was harassing, like in one of the Tigrayan home, the women asking the police to kill. So we've been researching who this person was. This guy right here with a little white check mark on the bottom. He is Eritrean, and we have identified him.
He's one out of many thousand.
That's right. So here is in the military uniform, and that seemed like in that recent photo. So we've asked people to see if they have photos of him without the mask, and the response we've got is that clearly there he is. This is from 2016. Thank you to those of you who actually worked hard and was more than willing to share some of these photos with me. I really want to appreciate you. I know that, in fact, some of those people who actually sent me these photos are out there watching. Here he is. So just FYI. So we're watching. So for those of you Eritreans who are really doing decent job, standing against the genocide, standing with Tigray, we will never forget that. But for those who are attacking our people, who are actually investing in Addis Ababa right now, that the wealth of Addis Ababa that was built by Tigrayans by far the majority, and they're just out there for grabs right now, rest assured that will be short-lived.
Yeah, I want to really stress here, Mike, what's going on in Addis or in other parts of Ethiopia against Tagaro, because of who they are. They have been targeted. They have been taken to concentration camps, or also we heard some of them are being tortured and also killed, especially in Western Tigray. And our voice throughout the world must be vibrate for those people who are defenseless. We are not doing enough. So I will ask Tagaro in diaspora to highlight the predicament of our fellow Tagaro. Our voice matters to stop this kind of genocide. This is a very societal government who is dying and trying to take so much lives with them as much as they could. So let's say stand together, rally together, voice together, knock the department, the State Department, our representative, senators, Congress, and elected officials in every level. Every minute, innocent Tigrayans are being tortured, being arrested, taken from their homes, or being solicited money so that they can be released again and then be arrested by another one. So let's hope to do a better job as we have done before to highlight the worst situation that the Tigrayans are facing in Ethiopia right now.
There we go. I was muting myself. So we got to continue the advocacy work, obviously. So here is another clip that I want to show you guys of the terrorist regime in Addis Ababa spokeswoman. Okay, literally, I'm saying a terrorist because it is Abiy Ahmed who should be the #1 terrorist leader in the world by ordering genocide in Tigray. There's no question about it. So anyone who's confused about that, let me know.
Since the start of Ethiopia's conflict, yet we are seeing armed groups fighting your government increasing its numbers as they advance towards the capital. What's happening on the ground, and how far are the TPLF and other allies from Addis Ababa?
Becky, thank you so much for having me. Before I answer your question, it would be quite disingenuous of me to respond to your question without first addressing the big elephant in the room. And it's important for me to share with you, as well as your global audience, that Ethiopians, a majority of Ethiopians in Ethiopia as well as abroad, strongly feel that CNN has covered the conflict over the past year in a manner that is highly biased and detached from context. And a recent example is the hysteria that CNN had caused last week as if Addis Ababa was under siege, sending a global message that the city is about to go down. And we have often shared that it seems Ethiopia is undergoing what seems like a coordinated media campaign to tarnish the image of the country, to tarnish the image of the Prime Minister and his administration. And media outlets like CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, and Reuters in particular, as well as others, have often chosen to carry an overly negative and skewed narrative, missing important nuances. And I reiterate this to you because I also heard the opening lines, which takes away or is devoid of assigning the actual blame where it is, assigning the blame to the TPLF that initiated this conflict. And they have also given testimony and confessed that they're the ones that attacked the Northern Command of the National Defense Forces.
Right.
So I think
let me respond to your words, because I've given you a chance to say your bit. Our work, our reporting was conducted carefully and methodically by CNN's highly experienced team in the region and elsewhere. We stand by its findings as well as the language used in our reporting, which we believe is fully justified. Here's a question to you. There are a number of media organizations, including CNN, currently in Ethiopia, who are not being allowed to report, not being granted accreditation from the government. What is the reason for that? And why? Why, if you want the story told, are you not allowing those organizations, including CNN, to try to do their work?
That is a disinformation that is being perpetrated, Becky, and I dare say this because I also deal directly with some of the media.
Hold on. We wanted to have what is disinformation? We have a team trying to get to work on the ground. Hang on, but don't accuse us of disinformation. Are you suggesting that we don't have a team that's trying to report on the ground? With respect,
I mean, listen to this.
Let's stop this nonsense. First of all, she roasted her alive. I'm telling you, she roasted her alive. She has nothing to say. She's not answering her straight up questions. Instead, she's trying to blame CNN for their professional reporting because they didn't lie like that. That's the only, the only issue that I can see from. At the start, let me say, it will be quite ingenious to answer the question that was really posed to her. It's not the other way around. She has to answer clearly. But the lies after lies has been the trademark of this government. One. The second, she is saying criminal groups. What are the criminal groups? They are the criminal groups with their rubber stamp parliament, because they committed treason. They brought another country against their own people. They brought Eritrea. They brought Arab drones, Arab Emirates, Somalia against their own people. Where is the parliament? This is a treason. So it's not only the prime minister who is in question. The whole parliament has to be faced in treason. On the second level, what is the agreement that was made between from Abiy Ahmed and Isaias? Nobody knows. And the parliament is just like a corpse, dead.
We can predict that two of them were discussing to simply get rid of all Tigrayan leadership and to occupy Tigray, and that Ethiopia supposedly have Mekelle and the southern Mekelle, and the rest of it was supposed to be given to Eritrea and Western Tigray was supposed to be given to the so-called Amhara region.
This is
So
about shit.
let's listen to what she has to say, though, because this is really interesting. Because, like you said, she didn't answer the question. She continued to argue with her and complain to CNN. Abiy Ahmed complained all day today that the West is supporting Tigray. Well, amazing. You know what? Maybe Tigray have done their homework correctly then this time around.
Because it is fact.
Your team is on the ground, but your team did not come into the country, or some members of your team did not come into the country by following the due process. I was informed, or some members of the government were informed of CNN being on the ground and asking for accreditation. The accreditation
Are you
process,
prepared to have them work on the ground and get accredited so that they can tell
course
the
not.
story?
You would have to allow me to finish. This is not a hostile environment to the media at all. There are so many other media entities that have entered the country. There are other media entities that have requested and been facilitated entry into the country, into the region that they wanted to cover these stories at. However, for the amount of blame that the Ethiopian government is admonished for not allowing media, you never hear about the media that actually do enter a report, and you don't hear about the media entities that have been granted accreditation, but their own
That's because they're not allowing them.
tell them not to actually enter to the country. So these are also, stories that
Look at the woman's face.
Forefront.
Yeah, because
Let's try and get to the bottom of what is going on here, because everybody wants the best for Ethiopia. I know you will agree with that. Certainly, we are just trying to get our work done and get to the bottom of what's going on. So let's do this. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for unrestricted access to Tigray, to Amhara and Afar, saying that no convoys with supplies had entered Tigray since October the 18th. I have heard this from numerous agency sources. What will it take for the Ethiopian government to facilitate access and end what the UN has called a man-made crisis? Let's start with that, and then we'll get into the politics.
Sure, Becky. Humanitarian concerns are equally as important for the Ethiopian government. So the portrayal of the government as a demagogue with no interest in the well-being of its own people throughout the country is erroneous, and it's not right. That is why it invested up to 100 billion birr in the humanitarian assistance and infrastructure repair works in the Tigray region. Until the National Defense Forces had withdrawn out of the Tigray region, which is the end of June 2021, the Ethiopian government had allocated or was covering up to 70% of humanitarian assistance. After the exit of the National Defense Forces, the onus of responsibility on humanitarian access reaching the intended beneficiaries within the Tigray region is on the TPLF. There has been, what we have witnessed after the humanitarian ceasefire that was enacted by the government, is encroachment by the TPLF into the Tigray and Amhara.
With respect, that is not the evidence of what our teams have seen on the ground, nor the evidence that I am being given by agencies who are still on the ground. The access isn't available, and that access isn't available. It may be from the TPF side as well, but the Ethiopian government is not helping. Why? Why?
The access is.
That's right. Because he wants the entire population in Tigray dead. Simple as that.
Let me respond first. He cut the electricity, he cut the internet, and he completely isolated Tigray for at least 6-7 months. That no journalist has been allowed to enter Tigray. If they were clear, if they were transparent, they should have let those journalists. CNN by now, they know what it means acceleration due to the process and all those things, these bureaucratic things that they know much better, but they are already, as is stated, on the ground. We are talking about the people who are journalists who are underground to cover the media without media outlets and other issues that is related to Tigray. They were not allowed to go to Tigray. They were not allowed to interview individuals, even with their staff, even from their own staff. So, in short, it is this woman. She's a sold out. She doesn't have really soul, even to talk on national media with such lies and deception. It makes me, those people who are members of the, Prosperity Party or liars, very low people like her, who could not answer the basic questions that is thrown to them. Just denial and blaming others and defying others. And that has been the trademark of this administration. As we have said, over and over and over, the state of Ethiopia is on the verge of collapse with many ways, economically, socially, and also, credibility issue as well. I mean, how could you deny, the basic questions that has been thrown at you that is quite obvious? And it makes me sick to my stomach, even that she is uttering with such denial is the worst of her.
Well, that's the best training they have had from day one. So here's the deal: we have a Tigrinya broadcasting that we have to do. This was a clip, one of the many clips that I recorded in Washington DC. I posted it, and I didn't realize people were that interested, but we had one of our favorite Oromo person who you all will know when I see this clip, who came and danced with us and who supports Tigray and who stands against the genocide. And of course, there were many others, but this was on my Facebook. I personally recorded it. I've got a bunch of them as well, but I thought it was very interesting. Got quite a bit of people watched it. And so I'm going to play this. We're going to end English, and then we're going to come back in Tigrinya. So for those of you who's been following us in this broadcast, we're going to let you listen to this. We're going to end the program, and then we're going to come back in Tigrinya. ስለዚህ እዚ እናበልና ዓለም ሙሉእ ዘለኹም ኣሕዋት ትከታተሉና ዘለኹም ብሳይበር ፓወር ትግራይ ሚድያ እቲ ናይ ሲኤንኤን ዝወፀ ሎማዓንቲ ብጌታቸው ረዳ በታ ናይ ጉሒላ ኣብይ ኣሕመድ ፕረስ ሰክረተሪ ተባሂላ ዝወፀት ኣሪና ኣስሚዕናኩም ኣለና ኢና ናብ ትግርኛ ፕሮግራም ቅድምታውና እዛ ድምፂ እዚኣ ሙዚቃ ከስማዕኩም እየ ካብኡ ናብ ትግርኛ ፕሮግራም እዚ ዓፂና ከም ብሓድሽ ክንመለሰኩም ኢና